Welcome to our webinar. Today's webinar is on setting up mat design, hardware, extra, and fitting. We're going to go right into one of the handouts that I have you just before we get started, because I want to let you know that if you are a new user to FrameReady and you think that you have to get all the pricing set up and everything set up first, the suggestion that I have for you is to go ahead and create the work orders as you would normally. Have the customer fill out the order as you normally would with them, and then come back to the FrameReady computer, fill it out in here. This is going to help you learn how to use the program. It's going to start building your history. It's going to show you which components are missing, and that's what we're going to be going over today, and show you how the prices need to be modified and ways that you can do that. So that's just a little tip on getting started. So we're going to go directly into FrameReady now, and I've got FrameReady all set up here. We're going to be working in the price codes file. Price codes file is located in this button here. You can use to access it, or you can use the button down in the bottom right hand corner. And you'll notice the background color when we go there is pink. Pink is for pricing. So let's go to the price codes file, and you can look at these items either in the form view or the list view. And over on the left hand side, if you are looking at them in the form view, you'll notice that the groups that we're going to be focusing on today are mat design, hardware, extra, and fitting, and they are listed on the left hand side. And if you were to click on one of those groups, it will give you the number of how many records are in that group and which one you are currently looking at. So we're looking at number 1 in the group. If we wanted to go through using the yellow arrows, we could individually look at them and see the details. The other option you have is to click on the list view button. This is going to give you a list of the items, and those same buttons are at the top that you can access the groups that you want to go to. And this is a great way when you're trying to edit the lists, is to go through these in the list view rather than in the form view, because you can see all of them at a glance. So that makes it a little bit easier when you're looking at them. The two of them that I want to focus on, one of them I want to mention is the hardware group. And some people will say we always put the same thing on the hardware all the time. There's no point in mentioning it. And I would suggest that yes, there is, because if you do need to put something else on and you leave it blank all the time, the question is, did you forget to put that item on there? Or, what is it always blank? So it's good to have whatever you are using on there and list it, even if you don't want to charge a price for it. The other one group to make note of is the fitting group. And what's special about the fitting group is that on the work order screen, this is the only group that has the option to either post fitting charges as non-taxable or fitting charges with no discount. All the other groups, the discount would be applied, but not to the fitting, because the fitting is your labor group, the labor that you're doing. It doesn't necessarily have materials listed in it, but it does have the labor. So that's why those two groups are a little bit different, and I just wanted to mention those today as being a little bit special. When we're looking at the groups, you'll notice that as I click on the groups, all of the dates on here have an older date telling you that this is when you first entered them into FrameReady, and when you first receive your program, they should have that older date on them. It's only when you add in a new item, it will create a new date for you to tell you when you added that item in. And also the other thing that you should be doing is, as you change the prices in here, change the date so that you know when the last time was that you looked at that item or priced it. Because in the molding, mat board, and fabric groups, those items will be updated for you automatically, and it will tell you what the dates are on the items. But in these groups, where you are the person who's deciding what the wholesale cost is, what the markup is, and when does the price change, it's up to you to change those groups. Don't worry about marking them as current, not verified, or discontinued. That's really more for the automated updates. You can leave that blank, but you do want to change the date when you have them updated. Now, when you're looking at the items in the list, you'll notice that they may not be alphabetically sorted. They're actually in the list sorted by the order that they were entered. So if this was the first item that was entered, it's at the top of the list. If you want to see them in a different order, my suggestion would be click on the item the word item, and that's going to sort them in the same order that they will appear in the drop-down list on the work order screen. So if you go to the work order screen now, corners inset is at the top of the list for the group of mat design. That's the one that we're looking at. And if we go back here and I take a look at this item and we click on mat design, you'll see that corners inset is at the top of the list. Each of the items that are in here are sorted alphabetically. And if you wanted to change the sort order, you can based on how the wording is set up on here. But let's go back to the price codes file because that's where we're going to be working mostly today. In your list, once you have your list and you're taking a look at the list, one of the things you want to do, the first step is delete all the things that you don't need. You may have items in here that you don't use. We don't do an inlay stripe. In that case, then you want to delete that item. And here's the tip on deleting the item. If you're in the list view and you see the item, click someplace on the line so that it will highlight the line, and then you will know that that is the item that's going to be deleted. And when you go up to the top of the screen and click on delete record, that is the item that's going to be deleted. Now, some people feel that if they're looking at an item and it has maybe an X beside it, and I have one set up here, they're thinking that's the item that's going to be deleted. So the increased rabbit depth you're thinking is going to be deleted because it has the X beside it. That's for the marked box. And the marked box has nothing to do with deleting the record. All right, it's the highlighted item that's going to be deleted in the list view. The marked box is used when you want to find a group of marked records and compare the prices on them, or see them all grouped together, or make decisions on which ones to keep or which ones you have in stock. So it's basically finding random items that you want to pull together because they don't have anything in common. I would use the marked box for that. You can also use it in the contacts file for sending mailings out, or for looking at a group of work orders, or finding purchase orders that haven't been sent and you just want to choose a handful of them. So that's the marked box. When we're deleting though, what we're going to do is click on the delete record, and that's going to delete the one item, and it is permanently. It means when it's gone, it's gone. You're not going to get it back. Okay, and when you click on delete, it's going to delete the one that is highlighted. The other option that you can do is to go into the form view. And if you look over on the left-hand side of the screen, a box appears on the left, and that box takes you to the form view specifically for that record. And if you decide that this is the record you want to delete, and you're only looking at one, you want to make sure you've got the right one. The delete record is down in the bottom left-hand corner, farthest away from the new button in the top right corner. New button is always in the top right. Delete record is almost always in the bottom left-hand corner. And that too will give you the warning message saying, are you sure you want to delete this, permanently delete this one record? And when you click delete, it's gone for good. All right, that's why always a good idea to have a backup, just in case you didn't really mean to delete that item. So going back and taking a look at our list view, and if I was in mat design and I'm looking at these, and they're going to be sorted based on the names that are in there. Now I want to possibly change the name of the item that's in here. So if I was to go to, let's go to extras, because I want to change the name of the item, I'm going to click on item, and you'll see that they're all sorted alphabetically so that the items that have the first part of the name are grouped together. And that makes it easier for me to find them in the list. Okay, I want to change the name of the increased rabbit depth because maybe I want to add another item in there. So when I click on that item, it's going to give me the ability to change the name in here. And when I change the name, I can click in the box. When you first click in the box, the entire thing is highlighted. And if you want to delete it entirely and change it to something else very different, a different item entirely, go ahead, delete it, and it's gone, and then just start typing and it will remove it. But if you want to go back, click a second time in the box, and that will place your cursor in there so that now if I have other items that have to deal with the rabbit, now I can add them in because the word rabbit is going to be in front of them. And my tips for this is once you've added the name in, click on the button, it's going to say, are you sure you want to change this item? And you're going to say yes, if you really do want to do that. And now the item is changed, and that's the way it's going to appear in the drop-down list from this point forward. If you had items that had used this in the past, they will still maintain the old name, but all new items going forward are going to have this new name. Give some thought to the length of the name. You'll see down here there are some rather long ones. This is about as long as you want your name on the item to be. So if you can use, rather than typing in conservation clear glass, you could do CC glass, or use abbreviations that you are familiar with. Because this long name here, when you print it out onto the work order, and I do have it on this particular work order, so that when I print it out, you'll see that it's about as long as you want. Otherwise, it's going to start overriding into the price. Now you have the option to don't have the price shown on the printed work order, and that would give you a little bit more space, but yeah, again, if you can keep them from being too long, that's beneficial. So moving back into the price codes file, another thing to take note of is you'll see there that I have frame space 1/8 black and frame space 1/8 clear. The next tip is don't use the double quotation mark in that name. And the reason for that is there's something called operators. And if you click on the Find button, you'll see all the symbols under the operators. These are the symbols that you should not be using in any of the names. And down here is the double quotation mark. And what it means is that it's an exact phrase match. So any word that appears in between the two double quotation marks, that's the exact match that it's going to find. And if I was to type in 1/8 inch with a double quotation mark, and then there's nothing after that, and there's no end to the quotation because there isn't another double quotation after it, the program can't find it and your record won't be found. So avoid using any of these symbols that you see on this chart. Okay, and that's under the Find button, and it's called operators. The next tip is don't use caps. And you can see that I have the two items listed here. This one is uppercase and lowercase. This one is the exact same thing, all uppercase. And you'll see that it takes up a lot more space when it's printed out, when it's visible, and they say caps look like you're shouting. So avoid using caps whenever possible as well. So Chrissy, it's time for us to do a poll. If you want to go ahead and take control.
Sounds good. 1 second. In which drop-down list do you have or need the most items? Mat design, hardware, extra, or fitting?
And it's unlimited. You can have as many items in there as you want.
I'm going to close and share the results.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Oh, extras and hardware. That is really interesting. Mat design, fitting. Yeah, I do find that most people have some standard fitting options that they use all the time. So I can see why fitting would be the least. All right, and that hardware and extra might be the most. That's great. Thank you, Chrissy.
You're welcome.
Super. So the next thing that we want to do on this list is add in the items that you do need. So once you've narrowed down your list and you've clicked on, let's go click on extra, and we have the list that we want, we can see the items that are in there. Now you get to the point where you want to add a new item. All right, two different ways to do that. One is that you may want to go to an item that already exists. Okay, and you're going to click on that fastest, easiest way. If I wanted to put the frame space 1/8 clear in there, easiest way to do that is to duplicate the record. And here's my tip on that, and that is copy this name in here first. And once you've copied that name, now go ahead and duplicate the item, because you can go back in now and paste that item in there. And I can backspace out the last part of the word and add in the next section that I need, because that item wasn't in there, revert field. Or I'm going to say okay, because I'm just going to put a different size in there instead. There, so now that I've added in a different size, an item, I now have a new item that's going to appear in my drop-down list. And you can see that it's added in down at the bottom. If I click on the underlined word item, it's going to sort them out numerically so that you can see that it's in the list, alphabetically and numerically. Another tip on sorting these items out is that if I did want some of these items to appear that they're the most important in my list, I could also, when I'm giving them the name, I could put the number in front of them. And if I was to say that this is the most important item in my list, I could, rather than sorting them out by the item name alphabetically, I can put a number in there. And if you are going to put numbers in, start out with 0, 1, because once you get to 9, if you just put the number 1 in, the second item in there is going to be 10. So it'll go 1, 10, 2, so 0, 1 will get this at the top of the list. If you're changing the name, it's going to ask you to confirm that. Go ahead and confirm. And now that item is at the top of my list when it's sorted. So that gives you the option to choose some items that you say are your ones that you don't want to have to scroll through a big long list if you do have a long list, so that makes it easy. The other way to create a new item is simply to use the new button at the top of the screen. And when you click on new, you're going to see 2 columns. These are the items that are updated for you that we have on the automated update, and that these are the items that you are looking after yourself. So that if you decide that you wanted to add an item in there, choose the group that it's going to go into, and it's already identified the group, and put it in there. Now go ahead and enter the item in, and if you decide I'm going to use the same sort of thing, and I'm going to do black. And now that I've added that in, I need to go in and put the cost in and then set up the pricing for it. Another tip is that if you realize that you've created an item in the wrong group, this isn't the group that I wanted it to go in, one of the things you can do is go right down to the bottom, click on the word group, and change it to the group that you want it to go into. You'll get a little red error message at the top saying this is the wrong layout. All you need to do is click on this title box here, and it's going to change the layout for you. So now this item will appear in the fitting group. Once again, if it's not the item that I want and I don't need this item, I'm going to click delete record, and it's going to remove it. So that one is gone. So those are the 2 ways that you can create those new items: duplicate record, or click on the new button in the top right hand corner of the screen. The next thing we want to take a look at is how you're going to price these items. And there are 4 different things that you can use for the pricing of them. And I'm going to go back to my list view and take a look here. So if I go through these items, the mat design, hardware, extra, and fitting all have the exact same pricing options available to them. But depending on which group they're in, you may want to price them differently. So if we were to take a look at fitting to start with, one of the items that you may want to use for pricing is under the tab for fitting pricing in the form view. This is where I would go first. The first item that I would look at is set price. There are 4 different pricing options for you. There are set price, minimum price, code table, and the price per united inch. So those items that you have a fixed dollar amount that you want to just give a solid number, and doesn't matter the size, it's going to be the same amount regardless of the size. That is your set price. And just click in the large white box to change that to whatever you want it to be. Okay, or you can click on the white field over on the left where you see the set price, and in here you can change that to whatever you want that to be. Click the close button and it's taken effect. And of course, when you're finished, change the date in the top right hand corner to say that this is the date that I updated this item. If you look at the calendar and it is a previous year, you can go right down to the bottom of the calendar, click on the word today, and that will put today's date in there. And so when I go back to the list view, I can see easily that this is the one that was just recently changed and updated. So the fitting price is something that you can use for items such as your hourly rate, or if you have in your hardware some items that are fixed, such as the easel backs, or a single item, a nickel corners, a set of 4 of them, then you can put a fixed price on those items. And that would be using the set price in order to do that. Another option for you is, rather than typing in the price that you want it to be, and this is going to help you later on, type in the word cost, saying whatever the cost is, I want to multiply it by a multiplier, a markup that I'm going to use. And that way, as the item increases in cost, all I need to do is come in here and change that to say now it is $4.10, okay, for this item. And the set price is going to change now when I click into the pink area, and it's updated the cost of the item. And then once again, I want to come in here and say that I've updated this item. Okay. And that simply was that it bounced over to the item over here and wanted to know if I wanted to update it, and I did not want to. So if you want to put a fixed amount in there, you can do that. Or if you want to use the cost of the item times a multiplier, you can do that as well. So those are two options using the set price for your fixed amount. Another option is to use the price per united inch. And that might be something that you would want to use on your mat design. So if I was to look at the French line, and I can see that it has a price per united inch over there in the periwinkle box, I'm going to click on that. And when I click on the mat design, I'll see that there is a price per united inch for this item. And if I click in that box and change the item, we'll say that we're going to increase it to 20 cents. When I click outside of the box, you'll see in the price sampler, the prices will all change. And I'm just going to click, and now the prices have changed. And this is the price per united inch. You can use this item alone without having anything in the set price. And if I remove that, you'll see that the prices are much lower. The difference here is then using the two items combined is that I'm going to increase all of them by the amount that I put into the set price. So now when I go over to the right-hand side, it's combining the two items together, the price per united inch and the set price. So you have the option of set price alone, united inch price alone, or a combination of the two of them. A third option that we have available for you is the minimum price. If you were to decide that with this, it takes just as much time, I have to have just as much care for the items that are smaller, and I want to set the minimum price and say it never goes below the amount of $15, then in here I can change this and type in 15, and when I click, you'll notice, there it is, now it will never go below $15. So that's my minimum price. The minimum price is rarely ever used alone. It's always in conjunction with another pricing method that you're going to be using. A fourth option that you have is to use the code price. And if I go back to my list over here, you can easily see any items that are using a code price because they will have the code appearing in the drop-down in the list view. So this item here is using a code table. The code table is probably the easiest way for you to take an existing price chart and say, I want to add that into Frame Ready. If we click on the item itself and it goes into here, you can see what the code is. And at the top of the screen, it tells you that the pricing is code table and which code table is being used. If I click on the dark blue tab for the fitting pricing, it goes directly to the right-hand side where the code table is, and the pricing that appears on the right-hand side are the amounts that are coming from the code table. So there's no cost, there's no markup, there's no set price or min price. I'm using a code. To see the code, you have two options. You can either click underneath the code, there's the code tables button, and that will go directly to the code, or on the left-hand side, as the code tables button in the column of gray buttons on the left. Because this item is using a code, when I click on the code tables button, it knows to go directly to that specific code, and it's showing it here. This code is based on the united inches, only the united inches. So if I had an old pricing chart where I wanted to select the united inches and put that in, you would just create a blank code table. And let's do that. We're going to create a brand new code table in the top left corner, and I'm going to select blank table. You do have other options, 2 united inches, default, glass sizes, but I just want to create a short blank one. If it's price per united inch, that would be useful if it was one of the other options in the list. But in this case, I am going to leave it blank. And that way I can create this chart. And when you give the item a code table name, make sure it's a short name. Something that if I wanted to create another fitting table, it's fit02. This is just the name for the code. It's not the item that you're going to be using on the price codes file or in the work order, and it's not the name of the table. It's just a short code number saying all the fitting ones go together, all the glass ones go together, and I can find them easily. Oh, if fit02 is already in use, I need to choose another name. So let's go to fit03 and see if that one's available. It is. So if you want to create something using your own United Inch measurements, simply type in the numbers that you want, and you can choose any sizes that you want to have in your table. It's up to you. You're simply matching an existing price chart that you had already. Now, once you've created this chart, there's a code table name, and this is a note where you can either say, this is where I got the pricing from, it's from an old chart, a paper chart, so you could type that in if you want, or it was $2 per United Inch, the pricing structure you used, or you could say that it's specifically for fitting whatever it is, standard. All right, and this is your standard fitting chart. And another tip I have is that if it shouldn't go over a certain size, that what you would want to do is put in an outrageous price if it is something that shouldn't go over a certain size, or you want to have something for oversize. I don't know that this would necessarily fit for fitting, but it does work for a lot of the other groups, such as retail products that you can't get a size larger than that, glass, or a mat board or something like that. You'll notice though on the right hand side here, there's nothing using this table. No one's using it at all. So in order for me to connect the code table with the retail product or the product that I'm using in the price codes file, the item that's going to use that table, I need to go back to whatever record it is, and I'm going to select that from the code table. So if I've created a new chart for this one, I can replace the one that's in here with any of the other charts that are available. And if I press the letter, now that I've clicked on that drop-down list, I can start by pressing the letter F, and it will go down to all the ones that start with F. And so here's my fitting tables. I've got one, this is my standard fitting. So I've selected that and put it in there. And now it's using this pricing structure instead of the one that was in there. If I want to remove the pricing structure that's in there, I need to use the clear button down here at the bottom. That will clear it out, and now I don't have any pricing. So if I want to go back to the one that I was, I'm going to just type in the letters FI, and I can go back to my fabric fitting. And that item is now in there. So there's my pricing structure that I'm going to use. Now, one of the things that you're probably wondering is, how do I know which items should go into which of these categories? And my suggestion to you is that when you're looking at your existing price chart that you have, take a look at it, go through the items and decide which group should those items go into. And just write on there with a pencil on your pricing chart that you have what the items are and the groups that are available in FrameReady. Give some thought to that ahead of time, because when you're on the work order and you decide that I've got all of these items that are all going into the same group of fitting, maybe I do want to put some of them into the extra because they're not really a labor-intensive item. They could go into something else. And when you go back into your FrameReady software, you know exactly which items should be in each group. And as I said, when you're on the work order screen, sometimes people select the item simply because they know that they've already got something in hardware, they've already got something in fitting, so they've decided to put it into the extra group, just that it's easier to go through the list. Now, don't worry if you have multiple items that you want to have in there. That's okay, you can do that, because I can click on the extra item over here, the underlined word, and you will have options to put all of those items in, additional items, if you have other things to do as well. And that appears on all of them. So the same thing applies for my fitting. If I've selected a standard wood footing, but I also need to put fillet fit in here as well, and I also need to charge for a labor amount, then I can do that. And if it's a quantity, the quantity here will give me the ability to say that if I only have one item in here that says labor 1 hour, I can change that and say I only needed half an hour. or I really only need it a quarter of an hour. So you can change the quantity, which will change the amount that you're charging the customer. So you have a lot of flexibility in what you want to do in your drop-down lists, and you have a lot of flexibility within here of the items that you want to put in there. So Chrissy, I think it's time for us to do another poll, if you're ready.
I am, 1 second.
Okay.
So which pricing methods do you use? Set price only, price per UI only, set price plus per UI, code table by X and Y sizes, code table by United Inch or Square Inch. And
the question from Julie was, is there a limit to the number of items you can select on the work order? The work order appears to allow only 4 items in this. If this is the case, what do you suggest for a workaround? Okay, and there are, you're right, in the underlined list, there are only 4 items in there. Sometimes people will combine items so that if you know that you need to combine D-rings and wire hanger, and rather than having D-rings, wire hanger. So that's just one example of where you can combine elements together if they're common elements that should be grouped together. You could do that as well.
Okay, I have another question coming in. It's, can you put items in multiple sections, extra and fitting, for example?
You know, I have never tried to put another item in there. I know that if, for instance, if you were doing a mounting, a float mount, and you want to float the art on top of the mat board, you can go into the mounting field and type in the mat board, and that will put the mat board into that item. I haven't tried it with the extras or the fitting, simply because they have different pricing structures. For instance, mounting and fitting have different options. Glazing and hardware have different options. So those pricing options may not be available in there.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share results.
Okay, so taking a look at our results, code tables by United Inch or Square Inch are very popular. Excellent. And code tables by X and Y. And yeah, I think that the code tables by X and Y are great for glazing when you're doing that, and some other items as well. Okay, but set price plus price per UI, very popular. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you so much for the feedback, everyone. Super. So, and just as an experiment, I don't know that I can put different items. I know that, for instance, we've got the wood here. I don't know that I can just type in the word wood and have it priced. Apparently I can. So keep in mind, though, that those 4 groups are the ones: mat design, hardware, extra, and fitting, that all have the exact same pricing structures available. So that one was at $21.50. Let me just double check and see over here if I remove these items. Yeah, $21.50. So who knew Framery was that flexible? That's awesome. All right, so yes, if you were in a pinch, you could type in, but remember that it has to be the exact name. I can't go into the fitting field and just type in shadow box and expect the list. I would have to type shadow box space, matted space, with space, walls, in order for it to go into the fitting field as well. So in a pinch, you can do that. Remember, though, that on the printed work order, some of those items will appear in other areas. So my wood is here, and it is also, my wood fitting charge is also an extra. And again, the fitting charges are the ones that you can say, do not discount this, or that it's going to be tax exempt. Non-taxable, because in some states fitting is not taxed. All right, and those are things that you can set up ahead of time. All right, so does that answer all of the questions there, Chrissy?
Yes, that's all the questions I have right now.
Okay, great. All right, then I'm going to go back into FrameReady here and take a look at the next section, which is the combined pricing structure. And we did take a little bit of a look at that, but I just want to go in and say that the other options that you have when you're combining those structures are, you can combine set price, minimum price, and the UI, but you cannot in this group combine anything with a code table. Once you've selected the code table, it's a standalone pricing option that you have. Now, once you've selected your pricing, one of the things you may want to do is you want to take a look at the pricing to see how does this pricing compare to each other. And let's go to the extra. and we'll click on the underlined word item so that we can see them in a list. And if I wanted to compare the pricing and say, for the groups of items that I have that are similar, is the pricing effective? You can go to each item individually to look at the pricing by clicking on the dark blue tab for extra pricing and looking at it on the right-hand side. But as I go through them, I have a hard time sometimes memorizing all the different pricing structures. So the easiest thing for you to do is go down to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, click on the price comparison button. On the left, you'll get a listing now of all of the items that are in here. And now I can see all the shadow box items that I have, how they're structured in there, and the pricing that I have. And this also gives me the ability to say, if I wanted to increase or decrease something, then I can do that right on this screen and say, I want to change that price. And when I click outside of that field, the price won't take effect until I leave that field, because as far as the computer knows, I'm still typing. And when I click on it, now I can see the pricing changes that I've made. So this gives you the ability to price right on the fly, and you can see all of the pricing options here and make the changes. You cannot do that in the regular list view. The regular list view is just showing you the items here, but you don't see all of the pricing structures that are being used to create the retail price for that item that's being used on the work order. So if you want to change the prices or see them at a glance, this is the screen that you want to use, and that's the price comparison screen, giving you the 8 by 10, 16 by 20, 24 by 30. Let's reset that, 24 by 30, 32 by 40. If you don't see the pricing structure, click on the reset button on that first record, because it's the first record that's telling you what are the numbers that are being used at the top. All right, or if you've made changes, you do need to click the reset button on the right-hand side sometimes to see the different pricing structures that are in here. So click on the reset button, update your prices, make the changes you want, and then remember that when you go back, you can either click on the done button or you can go back directly to that individual item. Because I've changed that item, I want to change the date on the top right-hand corner to know which items have I changed, okay, and which ones still need to be modified in FrameReady, or I haven't looked at those prices for a while. The rule of thumb is that you should at least look at your prices, your update everything once a year, or at least twice a year. Twice a year is better, but at least once a year. And if there are any items in here, such as your hardware items that may have a cost, you want to come in and update the cost, the material cost of that item, so that it's updated in FrameReady. So if you get a new price sheet that comes in, go ahead and update it. So on one hand, once you've got your pricing set up, it's in there, you're ready to go. But as prices change, you need to manually update those 4 groups. Okay, the mat design, hardware, extra, and fitting, as well as the mounting, glazing, and well, multi-angle, but mounting and glazing as well. So anything that's to the right here are the items that you maintain the prices and update them. Okay, the items that are on the left are the ones that you have the automated vendor updates that are available. Once you have these items selected, the next thing that I would do is go back to, and you've got them named exactly the way you want for your shop, and everyone knows those names. Go back to the main menu and go to the Options tab and go down to More Options, so that you can set it up on the work order default to have these items appear. So if you've changed something in there, you want to change that item. So if I had one that just said D-rings and that's what I use, I want to change it and select that item. Or if foam core acid free isn't the item I'm using, I want to use regular, then you're going to change it. But now you can have it so that each of those items are the ones that you've set up in the program, and every work order you create is automatically going to have these items. 2 theories on this. One is that you always want to have your best item in there, so that if it's museum glass that is my favorite one that I want, and I want people to use that, I can back the sale down to the lower priced item. If people are price conscious, it's easier to go down in the sale than it is to increase the sale. or the option is to say, I want to put in my best item, the most common item, so that I don't have to make those changes all the time. All right, so that's the tip that I have for.
Very good. Oh, we do have a question.
Okay.
Cannot do a comparison for other. Yes, I use it for my printing substrates.
Ah, okay. Usually printing substrates are listed under the group of mounting. So there isn't a group called other, and the price comparison is based on the group that you're in. So because I'm in the mounting group, it's going to look a little bit different now because it has the ability to do the combined pricing between a code table and a set price and a markup. So you would need to be in the group that you're using for that item, and you can do a find. If I was doing a comparison for my printing items, then I would say find, and if I've used PRT for all of my printing items, which I do normally, but not in this, so if I was to say if the word was wrap, okay, then I would do a find for them, get them in a list, go to the form view, and then click on price comparison. But we don't have a group called other. So we need to just focus on whatever the group is in FrameReady. And the groups are the ones that are the buttons over here on the left-hand side. All of these are groups.
She said, thank you.
You're welcome. No problem. Okay, super. Are there any other questions, Chrissy? I want to say thank you to everyone for participating in our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you on. Great. Thank you, everyone. Bye.